Good afternoon. Welcome back to the greenhouse. My name is Michelle. I own and operate River Valley Landscaping, but I really prefer to go by Misty. Today we are going to conquer the hanging basket because at this time of the year, which is the end of June, we're getting close to 4th of July. The basket that you bought when it was really nice out and it was cool has now gone through several heat changes. There's been lots of rain this year and wind, and it's probably not looking as nice as it did when you first picked it up. So I'm going to give you a few clues, some tips, what to do, what not to do, how to do's on taking your maybe a little bit haggard, wonky hanging basket and maybe get it back to where it was before all of the elements got a hold of it. One of the first things that I'm going to want to discuss with you is the value of fertilizer. If you look at these baskets that I'm going to be addressing, there's a couple of them in here that they just don't look quite right. And the reason they don't look quite right is because the vegetation, the leaves, are not as pretty green as they should be. This one is obviously yellowed out. And the reason that is, it's because it needs more fertilizer than what it's currently getting. This one is fine with the fertilizer that I'm getting. Fertilizer is important. The right amount of fertilizer is wonderful, but a little too much is horrible. If you over fertilize, the plant is going to go belly up and it's going to die. There's no coming back from an over fertilized. But if it's under fertilized like this, you can easily bring it back to being nice and green by giving it the appropriate amount of fertilizer. Some plants, flowers, are going to require a little bit more fertilizer than others. In this situation, this one right here needs more fertilizer. This one is the right amount that I give it. And then sometimes when you have a mixed basket, it's harder because you might be putting in one of these little tunas that are going to require more fertilizer, and it's going to be put with a ray petunia that doesn't require as much fertilizer. So some of it you have to play with, but overall read the directions, make sure that you are putting the right amount on it. So let's move ahead. Disc budding is incredibly important if you want your basket to keep blooming at maximum capacity. The main purpose of this flower is to produce a seed pod. This plant, its only mission in life is to produce seeds because it wants to reproduce. It does that by the flower being fertilized, and then it's got a little seed head. You want to take off the seed head. I know a lot of ladies come in and they say, I disc bud, and they're basically just taking off this little decorative part. But basically they haven't done anything. The seed pod is still there. So when you disc bud, especially a petunia like this, you want to take off, I call it the hip for better terms. It's the little part that is going to produce the seed. So this is the part that you really want to take off, not just the icky flower part. You want to take, this is where it's at, you want to take this part off because this here is where the seed will grow. So when I'm disc budding, there are some plants that, me personally, it's too much effort to pick off all of these little flowers. To me, unless it's a big ugly and I want to make it look pretty, some of these I just ignore because Mother Nature will eventually blow this stuff off. This flower, it's called a little tuna. It by nature blooms and blooms and blooms and never quits. So I don't really have to worry about keeping this thing in bloom because it's going to do it. And I don't have enough time to pick all these little things out. This one, however, has got the bigger flowers, and these you can see, they're kind of ugly. And so it's a lot easier to get these. And again, I'm picking off that whole stem that contains the little seed head. And when I'm doing this, I'm going to make this plant again throw on more flowers because I'm taking away its seed. This would be great for all of the petunias. But there are other plants that you have in your garden. Geranium is another one that people will do. I know that I've had ladies come in before and I've been picking off the geraniums, and they're confused because they can't understand why I just reached down and I took this whole stem, when they typically will come in with a pair of nippers and just take off this part. And the reason I like to go all the way down to the base of the stem is because as this is growing, I don't like this look, this little stemmy thing that's sticking up here with no flower. So I prefer if I go all the way down to the base and I take off the whole stem. It also, there's, you know, whenever you have a wound in a plant, it promotes an area for like diseases can enter in. So I'm going to be cautious of that. I don't want that to happen. So on a geranium, and it's kind of hard to see, you're going to have to follow me down in, but whenever there's a flower head, where it attaches to the stem, there's a little knob. And basically all I'm going to do is come in and I'm going to take my thumb and my finger and I'm going to go against the growth, and it'll snap right off. And that's how you take off the disbud, the flowers on a geranium. And it goes pretty quick. And once you get it done, gorgeous. They're just gorgeous. And again, whenever I'm taking away this flower that's spent, I'm taking away its seed head, and I'm going to make it want to make more flowers, just because I've denied it making that seed. While I'm doing this, I'm also looking for leaves, especially in a geranium. They're so tight that when the weather starts getting dry and hot, or when you're watering and then it's hot, it can get that little mold growing at the base, and I don't like that. So anytime I can clean up all of the debris underneath, I'm helping the plant, keeping it healthier. It looks nicer, so there's kind of a double whammy going on. And when I'm all done, it's healthy and it's happy, and it's going to give me more of what I want, the flower. Okay, so let's do just a really quick recap. We looked at baskets that need fertilizer, baskets that are okay. We've looked at the different sizes. We've looked at whether or not we need to clean them or if it's not worth our effort, and the ones that we need to clean because it makes a big difference. But if you can see, these are all one variety of flower per basket, so you really don't have to, it's just that one thing you're looking at. But I know if you're like me, I like my mixed baskets. And when you get a mixed basket, you find different problems. Some plants are more aggressive than other plants. And you'll get this basket that's, I call it wonky. It just went weird. And I need to reshape it. I need to clean it. I need to look on the inside and see if it needs to be deep cleaned or if I'm just going to pick off the edges. It's awful hard to do it when they're hanging up. So what I usually end up doing is I just grab them, put them down, and I've got like a little pestle that I can more see the top and I can see the bottom, and I can address the issues comfortably. I can see what's going on. And on this one, obviously you've got the petunia. Right now I'm just looking at general health. It's got good color. The flowers look fine. This is that little one that is going to have smaller flowers, but they're still there. So if I can pick at it really quick just for fun and get rid of some of these, I do. This is a heavy bloomer, so without taking off that seed head, it's going to keep blooming. It's just within its nature. The verbena here is a little bit different. This is the red one. These are strictly, once I've made my seed head, I'm going to kind of quit. So you definitely want to get rid of the blooms on this one, so that it's going to continue to bloom heavy for you. And part of the reason why there's more white now than the red and the pink is this is a more aggressive plant, the white one is. The pink one is less aggressive, and the red one is bloomed out enough that it's like, I've done my job, I'm going to quit now. So once I start picking off all of these blooms and I get it pretty much cleaned up with that, and you can see I'm not being overly cautious. I try to reach in and get the whole thing. I don't want to leave an ugly stem hanging like I talked about with the geraniums. I want it to be trimmed up so that there's a leaf. at the end of where I pinched it off, like right here. I'm going to go in and I'm going to pinch it off close to there so I don't have those ugly stems hanging out. Some of that's just my thing I like to do. I think it looks prettier, but you know, personal preferences. But I'm going to just keep going through on this whole thing, and I'm going to clean it first. Then I'm going to reevaluate, and I'm going to decide what I want to do with the shape of this. So give me a couple minutes, I'll get this cleaned up, and then we'll go over the shape. Okay, took a couple minutes, but it's pretty much clean. I've missed some. I'm going to find them later. You can never get everything. Don't worry about it. Just get the majority. Now, what we're doing is we're looking at the shape, and we're looking to see what needs to be done. Now, this thing's been blown in the wind, and it might have been blown all one direction and then maybe the other. So before I do any trimming, I want to make sure there's nothing kind of mixed up and pushed one way, which it's going to blow the other way. So kind of like you do with your hair when you want it to go, I just kind of go through with my fingers and I kind of just do this, and I make sure that the branches are all kind of hanging free. They're not on top of each other. And I just kind of make sure that it's just kind of sitting the way that it would naturally want to sit if it wasn't being blown around. And when I do that, inevitably, I end up with these long trails that were hung up in here, and now they're hanging even farther down. Reason why I do that, because I want to find all those. So when I do, this is where we start to trim. Now, in about 2 weeks to 3 weeks, this thing will look like I never touched it. But right after I trim it, it's gonna look a little light on the flowers. But again, whenever you start trimming anything and you start taking away some of its growth, the automatic response to that is that it starts growing from the inside out again. Let me get a plant for you real quick. This is a little easier to see on a closer view. So here's another petunia, and it's gone, I'm going to call it wonky. This is the best word I can come up with. It's got all these long trails. It's not very heavily bloomed. It's probably been in the middle of a flat, so it hasn't gotten a lot of light. It's been kind of squished. So if I come in and I start trimming, I lost my trimmers, they're there. I'm going to come in and I'm going to start trimming. And again, when I trim, I always want to make sure, if it's possible, that I trim it right on top of a leaf so I don't have that end sticking out. Mainly just for looks. I just don't like those ugly little stems. But I'm going to come in and I'm going to take all of this growth that's not doing anything for me. I'm going to take all of this off till I get down to a smaller. And this one looks like maybe it needed to get a little bit of fertilizer because it's yellowing out a little bit. Some of this yellow is not because of fertilizer, it's just because it was sitting in the middle of a flat and it didn't get sufficient sun. It was getting overgrown by everything else. So once you open it up, and if you get it out in the open where it's going to get a proper amount of sunlight, all of this in here is going to go nuts and just start growing. It's got a huge root system. The foliage is going to grow faster because of that, because it's got a good root system. This, what I just did to this, is what I'm going to do here. It's just a little bit easier to see that way. So I'm going to come in and all of these lengthy things, and I just kind of pick them up and I start pulling them out. I look for something that I don't like right here, and I take it off. And I just keep working around. Now right now I'm just looking at from here on down, and I want it to be symmetrical. I want it to be pretty even, but I don't want to grab it and just hack, because then I've got this straight line across and it looks like I attacked it. I don't want it to look attacked, I just want it to look fresh again. So I'm just going around, and anything that's hanging down here, and especially if it's hanging down with just one little flower at the end, I'm going to snip it off, and I'm going to force more flowers to come in. And as I do, I find more deads that I missed. You'll constantly find those. But I just keep pulling to see where it's at, and I'm lifting it up is all I'm doing. And I spin it, and I'll see how this is just hanging way down. So I'm gonna go way in here. I'm gonna find where it's at on the inside here, and I'm gonna take it out because it's just way too big. I'll lighten it up. And I'm gonna pull them apart, see what they do. And it's looking a little better. It's got a few more here I need to just kind of, and every once in a while, because I can get a little happy with the scissors, I try to take a look back, I take a look at it again. We're doing good, we're not getting too short, but we're lightening it up. We're taking some of the weight off of it, evening it out. Finding more deads. We're always cleaning those out. That's a never-ending job. Going, about done. It looks like I'm really going after this verbena, but this one can take it. This thing can, you can just chop it right off and it'll come right back. And it comes back with a vengeance. And it'll just be full of red. There, getting it. Okay, so I think I've about got the bottom conquered. I don't see anything too bad. I might get a little bit here and there going on, but I've kind of got the bottom. It's kind of about even, but it doesn't look like I just took a pair of shears to it and cut it off. So now I want to look down on the top of it. So I'm going to take it off. I'm going to put it down lower so that I can see what I got. And you'll see all of this white is really heavy. This white is kind of overpowering everything else. And I need to get some more light into the middle so that this lilac one, colored one, can do its thing. And if you see, look at all of the verbena that's sitting here, but it really wasn't going to do anything because it had all of this flower that had bloomed out. So there was no reason for that to start to go. So now I'm going to attack it. I'm going to bring it back into shape on the tops and a little bit more on the side. But I'm going to take these. Now these I don't want to get too bad. I don't want to take all the flower off. I got to have some. But I'm just taking down some of that weight, some of the density that this white one is produced. That's taking over. So let me spin it so you can see a little bit better. See how this one is so heavy right through here? So I'm going to grab one that's kind of sticking out. I'm going to pull it up so I can see where it's at. Just going to take the end off. I really didn't take much off, but I looked in to see where it was at, right above a leaf, and out, right here. Here's another one. Now this one I'm not going to take off much. Anytime you take off the end of the growth, the plant will automatically start growing from the inside because you've taken off its main leader coming out. So it's going to come in and put on new growth on the inside, which is where I want it to go. So again, I'll keep spinning so you can kind of see what I'm doing. See how heavy that is right there? I'm going to find a few more that I can cut in here. Not all of them, just enough that I can take some of this weight off. More deads in there. Again, you're always going to find those dead ones. Anything that's got a crooked stem, I take those off. Now, inside here, there's a few here that could come out because they're a little bit thick. And I want this verbena to take over a little bit more. And I want this little lavender one to have a shot at showing a little bit more color. He's sitting down in there, but he's way buried in there. So I just need to lighten this up so that that little lavender one has enough headspace that it can get going again and maybe have a show. There. So I have shaped it, I have lightened it up, I have aired it out, but I still have flower. So you really don't have to take all of the flowers off. You just have to pull it back enough so that you can get a good shape. Okay, so we kind of conquered this. Trust me, maybe we'll show you in a couple weeks what this thing looks like, because it's going to be just full of blooms. So I'm going to put this one up because I'm done messing with it. Now I'm back to these guys. Okay, we're looking just at shape. We already talked about this one. Obviously it needs fertilizer, so I'm going to have to address that issue, that it needs fertilizer. This one doesn't need fertilizer. I'm looking at just the shape. And they're about the same size flower. They're in that bigger petunia flower. And obviously you can see I haven't cleaned this one. So it's in the corner of the greenhouse and I just kind of lost it. But the overall shape is not bad. It might have a few at the bottom here that I'm going to want to lift up just to kind of make it nice and even. But as an overall, the flowers are all pretty much at the same distance from the pot. So it's got a kind of a uniform shape. This one, on the other hand, again with the wonky word, it's just wonky. It doesn't know what it's in, it's out. When I take it down, because I'm only seeing one view, I kind of spin it around and I'm like, whoa, there's a big dent in here. This probably happened because in the greenhouse, when the wind blows, these little boogers will kind of slide together and it got too close to another one for too long. So I have this little dent area that I need to do something with. This one is, I call severe trimming. This one's gonna get a major haircut. So again, I'm gonna pull up my little cheater so that I can see it. I wanna see how it's draping. This one's gonna hurt, but I guarantee you in about 2 weeks, this one is going to look more like this one. Dense flowers, they're all nicely shaped, all nicely in a good position. It needs to be cleaned, but the shape of it is really nice. That to me, not so nice. But this one's gonna hurt. So basically I'm just gonna start grabbing sections and I'm gonna take my trimmers and I just start cutting. I know, it's bad. You can hear it crying. This one is so wonky that it's like top heavy on one side, so I'm gonna have to make sure I get this side. I'm gonna have to take some weight off of this side or it's gonna fall over on me. Now, I kind of have a feel, I know where that pot's at. I'm trying to stay about the same distance away. I don't want to trim it wonky. I want to take some of the wonky out. So I'm gonna just keep going around and I'm gonna just keep cutting. And I mean cutting. I'm not even paying attention to those ends that are sticking out. I'll dress those in a little bit. But right now, I just want to take this weight off. It's just gotten a little too crazy. And as I'm doing it, you can see it's been so thick that I've got some leaves inside that are just dying off, which is not healthy for the plant. You don't want that to happen. You want it to have some air circulation. You don't want these things to rot away inside because it just promotes disease. It doesn't look very good. But I'm just going to keep cutting until I have all of this bulk off of here. When I get done, I might not have any flowers left. On the top now, I can see what I'm doing pretty easy here, but on the top, I am taking it back to about, I don't know, about what, 6 inches or so from the pot. Keep pulling off the bad leaves. You don't want those in there. While I'm doing it, you can see on the inside, see how heavy it was and how the leaves, this is just going to cause decay and it's just going to increase. It's just going to keep going. You just really want these to be clean and you don't want all that debris in there. Now, I've got this, when I spin it, it's about right. It might be a little heavy in a couple more places, but we'll take care of that. But overall, I've kind of pulled it back, so I'm gonna take it off. So now I can see it more from the top. And I'm gonna take it down. I'm gonna take all this out. Now, when I start doing smaller cuts, I do pay attention. I try and take it above a leaf. And if I find these in here, like this, where I just grabbed it and hacked it, and I got these, I start pulling these off. If there's still leaves involved in there, I leave them on, but like this one right here, I took all the leaf off, so I'm gonna take that out. So I'm kind of cleaning it up a little bit. I don't want it to be ugly, but I want some growth. These are all spent flowers, so I'm taking that off. I want to promote this inner growth, and I want this thing to want to go and start growing again, but maybe I can catch it next time before it gets so out of shape that I only have to do a few cuts here and there. Not everything is going to grow perfectly symmetrical. It's a living, breathing thing. It's going to do things. It's going to be weird, maybe. So you just kind of have to always keep watching it. But now I'm just kind of going through and I'm just cleaning it up. I really, personal preference, hate those little ends that have nothing on them. And I'm going to keep spinning it. I'm looking on the inside. I'm making sure that there's nothing dead in there. And when I get done, probably isn't going to be any flowers left. And at some point, I'm just really going to say, you know what, it's just going to be without flowers for a little bit, which is fine. It'll be back. Give it a week, give it 2 weeks. In a week, you look at this and you're going to be like, wow, I can't hardly tell where I trimmed because it's going to start to fill in with the leaves. And then the flowers are going to be there. And in 2 weeks, you're going to have all these little buds. And in 3 weeks, it's going to be full of flowers. And it's going to look just like it did when you bought it at the greenhouse.